Water brush pens come in many sizes, and here's a comparison to a standard paintbrush. They tend to be a little smaller, and you can even get smallest ones in travel sizes. There are 3 basic components to all the water brushes, even though each one might be a little different. There's the barrel, where the water goes, the tip, with the nylon bristles, and then a cap, making it ideal for traveling, capping it, and you can take it on a plane or you can take it to location if you want to draw or paint. The way to fill a water brush, and they're all slightly different, but you take your brush and you remove the barrel from the tip and the cap. Some of them are just open chambers like this, and so you can just take water from a tap and fill it in. Now, many people will suggest not using tap water. They'll suggest using distilled water. And that will just preserve your brush and your bristles from any mineral buildup. Then you just simply screw the cap back on, and you have water inside your tube. You can fill this up all the way. And then when you take off the cap, your bristles, by squeezing the side of the brush, will fill with water. And depending on the amount of pressure you use to squeeze the brush, you'll get more water or less water. Some brushes are slightly different, and instead of having the open tube, they have this little black cap, and I find the best way to fill those is to squeeze it and then just submerge that into my water and let the water suck up into the barrel when I release my pressure. Then I simply replace the tip and I'm ready to go. Speaking of tips, the tips of the brush come in lots of varieties. They're fairly durable. Even though they're nylon, they don't tend to stain, although they might have a little discoloration depending on the medium you're using. But they clean up very easily because the nylon doesn't tend to absorb the paint. Now, you can get away with just a single water brush. Like I do here, I would say I do 90% of my work with this brush. But I just wanted to show you the variety. They come in lots of sizes. Flat brushes, from fairly large to thin, and then you can have pointed brushes or round brushes that come to a nice sharp point. And here is the thinnest of them all. So here are some of the different strokes you can get based on the different size nibs on your water brush. So when you're done using your brush, they don't require a lot of work. Just make sure when you squeeze it, the water runs clear and there's no pigment coming off your bristles. Even if the bristles are stained, as long as that water runs clear, you've cleaned your brush. If you're not going to use your brush for a while, you might consider removing the barrel and emptying the water, just so you don't have mold build up, and letting it dry. But then once it's dry, you want to secure your brush together and make sure you hear that nice snap. And that will protect the point of your brush. Now, all water brush pens are slightly different. Sometimes you can find a set of 5 or 6 that cost the same amount as one quality pen. But just keep in mind, within that set you might have some great pens, but you might also have some that leak. And that just means that any of the seams, the water will run out. And I find that not helpful, and so I wind up tossing that pen. It's more frustrating to me than it's worth. Now, to incorporate water brush pens into your supplies, just think of all the things you can use water brush pens for. You can use them on watercolor. You just wet your watercolor with your pen, and then you could paint with it. If you have a travel set of watercolor, you can use that, take that with you. You could use watercolor pencils, where you take the pencils, you color in your image on your sheet, and then you can activate the watercolor with your water brush. You can even get a nice blend of colors this way as well. You could use a water-based marker in the same way. Anything water-based will work, but you can just take the tip, pull it from your marker, and paint with it. If you have graphite pencils, you can use those as well. Maybe you just want to blend out the edge. If you have a sketching pencil that's designed with a wash on it, you can make your sketch and then just blur your image. Now, if you have an ink pad that you want to use, you could stamp your image and then blend it out with your water brush pen. You can even re-dip into your ink pad to add more pigment. And if you have watercolor crayons or water-soluble crayons, you can activate those in the same way, either on your paper and then just blend your image, or you can blend it right from the crayon just to add a little color to your work. When you use your water brush pen, you have a little more leeway with your paper. Obviously, the heavier weight will absorb the water better than the thin weight paper, so tissue paper is out of the question. But I think it's worth a try to use other papers besides watercolor paper. Mixed media paper is fantastic, but give it a shot with the book pages or cardstock or scrapbook paper, and just be really cautious with your water. Don't use too much, use just enough to activate the pigment.